Hello, everybody. I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Blood Angel series and the Sector C series. And my guest today is Starr Davies. She is a Midwesterner at heart. While pursuing her creative writing degree, she gained a reputation as the character assassin because she had a bad habit of utterly destroying her characters emotionally and physically. Pretty good habit to have, actually, and she has maintained that throughout her writing career. From a young age, she has been obsessed with superheroes like Batman and Spider-Man, and they continue to inspire her work. I cannot wait to find out how they inspire her work and about all of her books. But before we get into it, this is the time where I ask you to please click like and subscribe to this channel. And as a bonus, in order to be entered into a drawing for a free autographed copy of Ordinary, the first book in Starr's Power series, make a comment below. That drawing will be done 1 week from the date this video airs. So if you want a chance to win, which I know you do, go ahead and comment below. All right, without further ado, Starr, tell us a little bit about you and how you got started as a writer.
So writing has always been in my bones. I think that I wrote my first story when I was in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
It was called Mariah in the Haunted House. I don't remember what it was about exactly. I'm guessing it had something to do with Mariah and entering a haunted house.
But you remember the name. That's amazing.
I do. I remember the name of the book, but I don't remember anything about it. I remember illustrating it too, which is funny because I am awful at drawing. And then when I was in high school, I used to carry notebooks around with me in class, and I got in trouble sometimes with my teachers because I had like 5 different notebooks that I would carry with me. And in each of them, I was writing a different story. So I would pull out whichever one struck me while I was in class. So instead of paying attention, I was writing. So it's always just been a passion for me. And when I married my husband, he really encouraged me to pursue that passion and to really dig into it. So
that's great to actually have that support system is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the Power series. And book 1 actually came out in March of 2020. That's Ordinary. And then book 2 came out in June of 2020, Unique.
Yep.
And you have book 3 coming out in February of next year. Is that correct? Extraordinary?
Yes. Yes.
Tell me, are you just an extremely fast writer, or is this a process that you've been working on for a while?
So it really depends on the book.
Okay.
With Ordinary, that one took me a long time. The first version of the book was nothing like what the final version was. The characters were the same and the setting was the same, but the plot was very different. And the second book, it just kind of came naturally after I finished the first one. But again, that one actually took about a year. Okay. So, and then this one, the third one, has been going fairly quickly, actually. The first draft is almost done, and I just started writing it probably about a month and a half ago. So, so it just depends on how well the book speaks to me, I guess. And there was a bit of a learning curve with the first couple of books too, because I hadn't done anything before.
You set a pretty quick deadline for yourself for book 3 then. If you just started a month and a half ago and you aim to release in February, I mean, that's a fast turnaround.
I have an amazing group of beta readers too. So like they've already read the first part of the book and they're eager to read the next part, and they give great advice. And so I owe a lot of my ability to be able to turn stuff around quickly to them because their advice has helped me a lot.
That's awesome. What does your editing process look like? I mean, you're an independent author, correct? You're not a traditionally published author?
Right.
Okay. So as independent authors, like myself and like you, we do have to do it all on our own. So, what does that process look like for you? You use beta readers, which is fantastic. Do you use a professional editor, I hope?
Yes, yes, I do. I go through it painstakingly, and I have other programs that I use that help me find some of the issues that would otherwise slip right past me. But then I also send it off to an editor to have them go through the book as well. So there's a lot that goes through the editing process. But once the editing process starts, it actually happens pretty quickly. So.
Okay. And what programs do you use in order to help you with your editing for those other authors that may be out there wondering? What kind of programs do you use to help your editor in the process so that when you send it, it's not all redlined?
So I use Pro Writing Aid. I think that it's a great resource for any author out there. They have the ability to pick out things that aren't just like grammar and spelling issues, but tone and repeated words, and there's a lot of those little nitpicky issues that you may not really notice otherwise. And so that program it's pretty amazing. And then once I go through it with that program, I also use Grammarly to help go through a second time to use just another fail-safe to help me find some of those spelling and punctuation errors before I send it off to the editor.
I am sure your editor greatly appreciates that.
Yeah, she has commented that it's usually fairly clean by the time I send it to her. So
give me the elevator pitch for Ordinary. And then if you can, read the back to us, please.
Okay, so Ordinary is a book about a boy with no superpowers who lives in a world where they're very ordinary and commonplace, and everybody has one. And so your entire life is determined by what your power is and how strong it is. And he doesn't have one. So he's struggling to figure out where his place is.
Okay, very cool. Can you read the back to us?
Sure. So having a superpower is ordinary. Your power determines your entire life. But Eugene doesn't have a power. The only thing special about him is that he isn't special at all. Eugene is powerless. So when the most prominent biomedical research company in the city offers Eugene a solution, he jumps at the chance to be ordinary. All he has to do is allow them to use him as a test subject in their research. But the longer he stays, the more he realizes something isn't right. Friendships are forged, trust is built and broken, and everything he thought he believed is called into question. And he has to decide, is it more important to have a power or to save everyone else?
Ooh, okay, so that's intriguing. That sounds awesome. If you want to get a chance to win a copy of this book, make sure you comment below. All right, so I have to pick up my own copy because I'm definitely going to be reading it. Tell me what inspired this story? What was the aha moment that put this story in your brain?
So my husband and my stepson and I used to sit around at night and have these what if conversations. And we came up with all kinds of random things. The more out there they were, the more fun it was for us. It was like a game that we used to play with each other. And one of them was, what if there was this boy who lived in a world where everybody had superpowers except him, and the only job he could get was delivering flowers? Obviously, my story is a little bit different from that. He has no ability to get a job anywhere. But that kind of just struck me. Like one day I was like, I really just need an idea for my book. And it hit me. I was like, wait, like this lightning rod just went off. And I knew that was the story.
That's awesome. Now, does the series follow him the whole time? So is Unique and Extraordinary all about the same character?
Extraordinary is actually a companion book. So Ordinary and Unique they both follow Eugene's story, and Extraordinary follows another character in the story that I had a lot of feedback from readers that they were curious about what happened to her.
Yeah.
And so So I'm writing her story. And so there are parts of this third book that overlap with things that happen in the other books, but it's all from her perspective, and I try to not imitate too much of what's going on. I only give her the pieces that she needs for her story. So
Gotcha. Now, is this the end of the series, or will this series continue? And what do you see for it in the future if it does continue?
So I don't have any plans for anything else right now. There was another character that I have had a couple of requests for her to have her own story because she was a really fascinating character to people. Her name is Celeste, and she's the youngest out of the group that is in the facility with Eugene, and her abilities are extremely unique. And I don't want to go into too much detail about what it is or what happens to her because I don't want to spoil the fun for everybody else. But there is possibility. I have a couple of other series that I want to get written, but there's a possibility that she might actually get her own series sometime in the future. So,
okay, very cool. What can you give us a little insight as to what types of powers the characters? Don't tell us who or how strong, but just what types of powers the characters in this world have.
Right. So I wanted to keep things kind of constrained. I didn't want it to be a loosey-goosey, everybody can have any random thing from flying to, you see all kinds of stuff in the Marvel and DC universes that's all over the place. And I wanted to have a clear set of rules. So there are actually 4 branches of power in the series. And each branch has its own set of powers within it. But there are the somatics, who have powers with the body. So it's like enhanced strength or touch or smell, anything that has to do with the body itself. There's psionics, who are the powers of the mind. So they can do things like, telepathy, and they can do tracking, and they have the ability to do telekinesis. It depends on, who the person is, obviously. But and then there is divinic, who are the more divine powers. So they have the ability to do things like predict the future by reading the cosmos, and healing abilities, and things that might be considered more like otherworldly powers. And then there are the naturalists, who have the powers to manipulate something in nature. So there are a couple of people who have the ability to do environment creation. They can transform energy from one organic matter into a similar type of matter. And so each of the branches has different things that they do.
Okay, very cool. I have to ask, have you read the Darkest Mind series?
I have not.
Okay, because I'd be interested in your thoughts on how your story differs from that story. Maybe we'll have to touch base on that later after you read it, after you have a chance to read it, if you ever do. All right, so you've got book 3 coming out. You're almost done with the first book. What do your readers have in store after that comes out? Where might your writing take you?
So I am actually also about halfway through writing another series that's called Fractured Empire. And it's actually a Mongolian historical fiction.
Okay.
And there are some elements of fantasy that I've put in there, but when I was an undergrad, I took a history class where our final for the class was we had to do a report on something that happened during that period of time that class covered. And so I can't remember exactly what frame of time that was, but I came across this book that was called The Secret History of the Mongol Queens. And I'm like, what is that? That sounds really interesting. And so I chose that one because it fell within that date range. And I fell in love with one of these women. Like, she was just amazing. And so I always knew that at some point in my life, I would have to tell her story. And I finally decided, after I finished writing Unique, I was like, I'm going to write her story now. I'm just going to do it. And I got in contact with the author of that book, and I said, hey, this is what I'm working on. If you have any idea where I can find some good resources that I can use for my research, in addition to your book, I don't want to get information off of Wikipedia. I want it to be authentic. And I wasn't expecting to hear anything back. And within an hour, I had like 4 emails from him, and he had shared all kinds of information with me. And he was like, if you have any other questions, I love this woman too, and I will do whatever I can to help make her story come to life. And so I thought that was pretty amazing. And
Yeah, it is. I mean, the author community, I think, is also just very supportive in general. But I find it fascinating when somebody just reaches out to a complete stranger, an author that they've never heard of, or has never heard of them, and they respond so quickly. And that's fantastic. So when will that book be coming out, or have you started the process of writing it? Where are you in that process?
I don't have a solid date for when that book's going to come out yet. I have the first draft of the first 2 books done. I'm expecting it to be 4 books. And I got kind of interrupted with this story for Extraordinary. So the other 2 books in the series I haven't even gotten to start yet. But again, my beta readers have read the entire first book, and they absolutely loved it. They thought it was worlds better than what I had already done, which I was like, I don't know how to take that.
Well, I think that we always improve. With each book, we should get better. So I think that's a good thing.
But then they started reading the second one, and then I was like, well, I really need you guys to take a break from that and help me with Extraordinary instead, because I've got to get this thing done so that I really just wanted to be able to put all my focus into the Fractured Empire series, and I didn't want to have this other thing hanging over me, just waiting. So that's part of the reason that I'm kind of trying to get Extraordinary done faster.
So do you plan on rapid releasing this new series? I mean, you've already written the first 2 and you're waiting to do the second 2, or are you going to actually release the first one and then release the second one so that you're doing the writing in the process?
So I'm hoping to do a rapid release. I don't really know what my time frame is going to look like yet. It's hard for me to say because I'm only halfway through writing the first draft of the series. And I wanted to write the complete series before I start going back to the first book to do edits, because there's a lot of research involved in historical fiction. And so even as I was writing book 2, I was learning things that needed to be in book 1. And I'm like, okay, so I definitely need to make sure that I'm writing the whole thing first, so I'm not making any of those mistakes in the first book, because I'm trying to push things out too fast. So
what have you found is the main difference between writing historical fiction, where you do have to pull from history, and creating a whole new world for yourself, like I believe you did in your Power series?
It's actually a little bit frustrating for me going from something that was very free. The Powers world it's kind of loosely based on our world, but going from that to something that is so limited, because I want to try to get history. I want to tell a good story, but I want to make it as historically accurate as I can while doing so. So it's actually pretty constraining, and there have been times that I've been near tears just trying to learn. I need to know this little piece of information, and I can't find this information anywhere, and I can't carry on because I can't figure that little piece out. And so finding some of those answers, it's been kind of limiting, but at the same time, I think that it's also helped me write stronger narratives as well.
Okay. What does your writing process look like? Are you a pantster? Are you a plotter? What does that look like? And how do you, I don't know if you work full-time or part-time and write. Is writing your full-time career? And how do you work that in, and how has COVID changed that?
So I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do have a job, but it's a freelance. So I pick up work and do it as I need it. And when I want to focus more on my writing, I have the ability to do that. And my husband is a doctor, so he takes care of the family and gives me the opportunity to pursue this, and it gives me the ability to stay home with the kids, which is something that I have to do now because they've been doing school virtually.
Yep.
Pretty much since all of this started back in March. So, but as far as my planning goes for my books, I was kind of a mess. It was a hot mess with when I started writing Ordinary. Like, I knew that Eugene had to go into this facility, and I knew that he was going to have to undergo these brutal tests while he was there. But I didn't really know where exactly the story was going when I started.
Okay.
And kind of let him tell me the story. So for that one, with those first two books, as long as I had a clear ending by the end of Unique, I kind of just let the characters go with it and just nudged them along to where they needed to be when I felt they needed to be there. But Extraordinary, I don't have the ability to do that because it's limited to what happens in the other books, and I have to make sure that I'm following the timeline properly. So I do have that one kind of loosely plotted out. I don't plot strictly. I just have this document where I say, these are the things that need to happen. And I let the characters get from one point to the next as long as they get there. And I make sure that I'm hitting those points at the right spot in the book. Then I let them go. Fractured Empire is not the same, but I knew the entire story before I even started writing it. So it's me just filling in the blanks as I go and making sure that I'm following those major beats and hitting all of the big parts historically so that I'm telling the story accurately.
Are there any authors that you feel influence your writing?
So Robert Jordan was a huge influence to me. And there are going to be people out there who are going to roll their eyes at me for it. And there are going to be people out there who are like, yes, me too. I love Robert Jordan. I find that there's not a whole lot of in between with him. People either love his work or they don't. But I read the Wheel of Time series. I devoured it. And it's some of the best writing that I think I've ever read. And it was very detailed. And there are probably some points in that series where he could have cut a bit out and it wouldn't have hurt anything. But his overall writing style is very influential in my life. And he was a big motivation for me to begin writing in the first place.
So is he one of those authors that you'll pick up whatever he writes? If you see his name on it, you'll pick it up. Or do you have other authors like that?
I used to be that way with Brandon Sanderson, but then I found out that was all I was reading. And I'm like, this has got to stop. And so I haven't read any of his books in a while because I got so sucked into his worlds that there were no other worlds for me. And I kind of cut myself off from the source for a while.
I can understand that. I have done that before as well. Now, you say you have loved superheroes and superhero stories since you were a child. Clearly, you have created your own with this series. How do you see that aspect of, or that passion of what you enjoy going into what you create in the future?
So I don't see a whole lot of superpowers in most of my books. The Ordinary series is an exception. And there are some kind of fantastical things that happen in Fractured Empire that some people might call borderline superhero. Like some of the rituals that they go through and, some of the things that people do. There's actually historical documents of this one guy who was rescuing this baby, and this baby was very important, but he was being chased on horseback, and he threw the basket that held this baby up into the air, and it landed on the ground while he's riding on horseback. Again, this is historical documents, I'm sure that they embellished a little bit too, but he turned around and fired at the people that were chasing him, and then scooped up the baby in the basket with his bow as he was running on horseback. And so again, there's some fantastical things that happen, but it's not just, you know, superpowers. It's the personality and I guess the hero complex that some of these characters have had. That, like, Batman was probably my first superhero love. I remember watching the first Batman movie over and over again until my videotape wore out, and I probably drove my parents up the wall, and I could quote that thing from beginning to end. I was maybe 8. So just the characters themselves really inspired me, and they strike me.
So if there are aspiring authors out there watching this video, what advice would you give to them?
Just write, keep writing, and, you know, you can't do it if you don't try it. And so you just have to go out there and push yourself to do it, and get help. You know, you can't do it alone. I tried that for a long time, and nothing that I did during that period was worth anything. It was a whole lot of garbage. But, you know, once I found a good group of beta readers and I got some good support behind me, things really turned around. So don't try to do it by yourself.
I think that's excellent advice. All right, let's go. I like to end all of my interviews with the James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio questionnaire. So it is 10 questions. There are no wrong answers. Just answer with what comes to your mind when I ask the question. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Question number 1, what is your favorite word?
I have 3.
Okay.
I like flibbertigibbet. I think is a great word. I discovered it completely by accident, but it's basically a person who talks excessively. They are considered a flibbertigibbet. Collywobbles is another word that I really love. I think that it's fun to say, but it's also just a really fun word to think about too, like something that gives you the collywobbles. And snowbones is a word that I think needs to come back.
Snowbones. Okay. Snowbones. With that, what is your least favorite word?
Stupid.
Yeah. What turns you on? Yeah, it is.
Humor.
What turns you off?
Ignorance.
What sound or noise do you love?
I love a full-bellied, honest to goodness laugh. Yeah. Especially from my children, but really from anyone when you know that they're all in.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
The sound of metal on metal.
Oh, yeah. What is your favorite curse word?
Probably S. The S word. I use it.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I want to be a ninja. I don't think I'd be very good at it, but I think it would be interesting to try.
It would. What profession would you not want to try?
Probably hauling garbage. Seems. I'm grateful for the people that do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gate?
It wasn't for nothing.
Yeah, that's a good answer. All right, that is the end of my questions. So if you have stuck through this video, the entire interview, make sure you have liked and subscribed to my channel. Make sure you have commented below so that you can be entered for a chance to win Ordinary by Starr Davies. And let's see that copy. That's what it looks like. And you could win an autographed copy. So make sure you make a comment below. Starr, thank you so much for taking time today to talk with me and
Yeah.
share your stories and your process. I will be in the description below giving all of her contact information, links to where you can purchase her books. So make sure you go out and you purchase them because they are worth it. Go and support her as an independent author, and why not read something good? All right. Thank you so much and have a great day, everybody.
Bye.